In this video, I'll try to see if I can make some 1,000 point Grimdark Future armies from OnePageRules out of the Warhammer 40,000 combat patrols that I already have built and painted. A few weeks back, I made a video about how I finished painting an entire 1,000 point army for Grimdark Future, the sci-fi army scale game from OnePageRules. You can check out the video here, pachow, and there you'll find out why this is a big deal for me. Spoiler, it's because I'm generally a skirmish player these days. I generally play games where my forces are a warband of like 5 to 10 models tops, not much bigger than that usually. Army games are usually far more models than I want to build and paint. However, Grimdark Future made my goal more attainable, which I appreciate. So I have a 1,000 point Robot Legion army finished, made with the OnePageRules models from the Broken Truth 2-player starter box. And I'm currently painting my second 1,000 point army, the Saurian Starhost, also from the Broken Truth box. I'm painting those space lizards, or, splizzards, as you might call them, on Twitch Monday nights and Friday mornings lately. So follow me on Twitch and get reminded when I go online and paint more splizzards. They're coming along pretty nicely, but it'll take me a little while to get them completely finished, right? However, I also already have a third completed army. As I mentioned in that video a few weeks ago, I have been able to use my Astra Militarum, or Imperial Guard, as real ones call them, the combat patrol, right? The Imperial Guard combat patrol, to make a third 1,000 point army. Now, this is the older, kind of cool Imperial Guard combat patrol called Karsk's Gunners. And that's got the Imperial Sentinel in there and 2 field ordnance batteries. It's pretty cool. The new one, which I can't even find on the Combat Patrol downloads page over at Warhammer Community, which seems odd to me, that new one is pretty much just troops and horses, which I haven't bought yet, and I probably won't either. When I made the 1,000 point list from my Imperial Guard Combat Patrol, it turned out I was able to use nearly all of the models in the box, but not completely every last one of them, right? So here's my list, and it comes to exactly 1,000 points if you're interested. Like I said, it uses all the models except for like 4 of the command squad. The command squad is usually 5, but I just use Karsk, the leader, as my company leader model for the list, and then the other 4 models in the command squad, I guess they stay home or whatever, do whatever they want. Otherwise, both 10-person infantry squads, the Light Walker, aka the Armored Sentinel, and both gun emplacements can be used. This made me pretty happy, as I was already done building and painting this group, and as I wasn't really playing Combat Patrol much these days anymore due to constant rules tweaks and stuff like that. It was really nice to be able to just drop these models easily into a set of rules that I enjoyed more. Chalk it up as another win for miniature agnostic gaming, I guess. But then I thought, what about the other combat patrols that I have? Could I pull some more 1,000 point Grimdark Future lists out of all those finished combat patrols too? I decided to find out. Just a quick note, I'll be building all these following lists for Grimdark Future with force organization turned off. I mostly don't dig the force org rules in Grimdark Future. I feel like they're a little bit more restrictive than I might like, so I just click the checkmark off when I start my army building. Then I don't have to worry about it. It's another bonus to this rule set and Army Builder. You're more in control of your experience, unlike with some games. But you can do what you want. As soon as this new version of Combat Patrol was announced at Adepticon 2023 with the launch of 10th edition Warhammer 40,000, I was on board. The next day, like the presentation and all that kind of stuff, the preview was on Wednesday night at Adepticon, and then the next day, Thursday, I bought the Deathwatch Combat Patrol box from a booth, some retailer at Adepticon, not from the GW booth, some other retailer that was kind of a local thing. And then when I got home, I started building and painting them as soon as I could. I love the look of them. I've always loved the Death Watch look, and I enjoy painting black armor, And there were only 15 models in the box, which is basically kind of like a pretty big skirmish warband, in my opinion, not like a full army. But in this situation, it counts. So I started using the Army Forge website, still the best army builder in the business, in my opinion, and I started list building. I was able to use 14 of the 15 models in this box to build my list. There's no Grimdark Future direct equivalent to the Apothecary model, it seems. There's no dedicated medics in this army at all, actually. I mean, so what's more grimdark than that, right? So setting the Army Forge to Watch Prime Brothers, which is their Death Watch equivalent, I was able to put the other 14 models in there and make them about as WYSIWYG as possible, which I prefer. I'm kind of a WYSIWYG nerd. And I got to 990 points. This is pretty much close enough for me. And if there was another thing that was like 10 points that I could have added, I would have. So now I have 2 Warhammer 40,000 combat patrols that could easily be dropped into 1,000 point lists for Grimdark Future. This is pretty cool in my opinion. Then it was time to see if my Space Marines combat patrol would work also. This group is only like 12 models, and they're called Strike Force Octavius. The models originally were included in the Leviathan 10th edition launch box, right? But you can get this combat patrol online only, I think, otherwise. I had a lot of fun painting them, and they're probably the combat patrol that I played the most back in the start of 10th edition. This group was a little harder to fit into Grimdark Future, but I was able to do it. First of all, there are technically no Terminators in the Prime Brothers army list, right? Which is what you use for Primaris Space Marines. Therefore, you have to pick Prime Brothers, like in the Army Builder thing, and then add another army list to your build. And that list is called Prime Brothers Destroyers. It's basically just different types of Terminators without all the rest of the Battle Brothers, aka the non-Primaris guys, included. There's also a list that you can find in the system called just Prime Destroyers, but that list didn't work very well for me. Once I had that stuff figured out, it was pretty easy, actually. Now that said, the Flamethrower Primaris guys for OnePageRules only come in squads of 3 instead of 5, like they do, actually in 40K. And this is the same with the Destroyers as well, aka the Terminators, right? Also, there really aren't any librarians per se in OnePageRules, but you can use a Prime Destroyer Master and give him an ability called Caster 2, right? Which means that he can cast 2 different spells, and that's kind of like his power and stuff like that. And librarians are basically just spellcasters, right? Exactly. Anyway, therefore, if you use this combat patrol to make a 1,000 point list for Grimdark Future, then you're really only using 8 models, leaving 2 of the Flamethrower Primaris and 2 of the Terminators, back at home. And then you're right at 995 points. I also have the Necron Combat Patrol painted as well, the newer one called Amon-Hotep's Guard, or something like that. The original one had one of those flying croissants in it, and that one didn't last for very long. The new one, Amon-Hotep's whatever guard, is the one that I've got painted up and built. It's an HQ model, right? And then there's 10 warriors, 5 with one type of weapon and 5 with another type of weapon. And then there's 3 Scorpec Destroyers, 3 Scarab Swarms, and then a Canoptic Doomstalker, who is a beast. He's a big honking guy. We're heading kind of back into, obviously, Robot Legions territory here, which is the most recent list that I finished painting using the actual OnePageRules Robot Legions models. The Necrons really do fit pretty well, obviously, with the Robot Legions, so I started with my Combat Patrol box to see if I could build 1,000 points. If I put in everything, like the entire Combat Patrol, then we were over 1,200 points, which obviously wasn't going to work. However, if I took out the Tri-Scorpions, aka the Scorpec Destroyers, then I'd hit a perfect 1,000 points. The big guy, the big Spider Walker, aka the Canoptic Doomstalker, is 535 points himself, like half the army. This is something that I see across all of kind of Grimdark Future. All the monsters and big creatures and all the vehicles, even simple transports, are very expensive points-wise. This is mainly because they are much, much scarier in Grimdark Future than in 40K. Now, if I leave the big guy out and keep the 3 Tri-Scorpions in, then we only hit about 750 points, which isn't near enough to 1,000 points in my mind. Now, sure, I could add in some other figures to hit 1,000 points, but this exercise was designed to see if I could build 1,000 point Grimdark Future armies with just what's in my finished, combat patrol boxes or not. So far, it's worked pretty well. I've been able to use all 4 of my completed combat patrols to make near 1,000 point armies. Now, what about my half-finished combat patrol? The last combat patrol that I painted, didn't finish, but probably got more than, say, like about half done, was the original Dark Angels combat patrol, the cool one with the Redemptor Dreadnought, not the newer one that's basically just oops all dudes, right? It's called Mordecai's Judgment, and I got the Dreadnought and the 5 Primaris guys completely done. I wanted to see if it was worth it for me to finish the Chaplain and then the 3 Inceptors with their big giant stupid 11-part backpacks, So back to the Army Forge we go. Unfortunately, things didn't go as well this time. Basically, if I try to use all the models in the Combat Patrol, then I'm over 1,100 points. Mostly because of the Redemptor Dreadnought, known as an Attack Walker in Grimdark Future. You see, that thing is 615 points of the 1,000 point army. Like I said earlier, vehicles and monsters and whatnot are very powerful and very dangerous and very expensive points-wise in Grimdark Future. So if I decide to pull that thing out of the list, then I don't even have 500 points, right? So the Combat Patrol, that one, doesn't really work by itself. So I'd either have to build up to 1,500 points and add more stuff to it, or just try different models. In the grand scheme of things, being able to make 4 entire 1,000 point armies out of the models in Combat Patrols that I already have finished is pretty cool. The Dark Angels list fail is kind of a bummer, because I really, really love that Redemptor, and I thought the paint job turned out pretty good. But, maybe it gets added to with more models to take it up to 1,500 points in the future, like I said, or maybe even 2,000 points. We'll see. Now, all that said, I've looked at some of the other combat patrols that are available now, mostly the newer ones with fewer vehicles and such, all that kind of stuff. And just at first glance and kind of doing the math in my head a little bit, many of them don't even make 1,000 points by using all of the models in the box. If you'd like me to make another video about some of the other combat patrols that I haven't already talked about, let me know down below in the comments. All in all, I really love the army building system in Grimdark Future, and I love the rules too. Between Grimdark Future and Grimdark Future Firefight, the sci-fi skirmish rules, I find that I already have a lot of models to make into armies and warbands, and that's actually really great. And after I get done with the Space Lizards that I'm working on right now on Twitch, I'll have another big, fun, secret project for another Grimdark army coming soon, and I'm looking forward to it. What do you think? Have you played any of the OPR games? Did you like them? Do you want to see what armies that you can build with the Army Forge? Let us all know down in the comments below. And if you get the chance, a little depressmentation of the like button would also be very appreciated. It helps to kind of get these videos more out into the world. And it also lets me know that hopefully I'm doing things right. If you want to subscribe, there's also a button down there that you can hit as well. It's it's totally free. Thanks for watching.